I can't be mad, man, because that has happened to me so often recently.
I can't believe it. My alarms, they didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, what on earth? Do you happen to know if
Hmm.
you like just totally powered through the audio, or did the audio just not play?
I powered through my audio. I'm a very heavy sleeper,
Jeez. Woo.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I've got like 5 alarms.
Oh man, have you ever considered, and maybe you actually have one of these, one of those like an alarm that's like across the room, or one that just like gets louder and louder over time?
I haven't actually. I generally set 5 alarms on my phone because I know that Sleepy Peter is a
Yeah.
realistic thing. It's another entity that will physically wake up and do things and not remember anything about it.
Ooh.
Yep, I've had
You,
conversations I don't remember.
what?
Exactly.
Oh, that's kind of eerie, dude.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like has that ever gotten you in trouble?
No. I've just like missed out on things.
Gotcha. Okay, you've never like found out that you made like a promise or something while you were sleeping or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. Thankfully not.
Gotcha. Oh, I just realized I have some half and half out here that should really be refrigerated.
Oh
One
yes,
second.
please don't take your time. Do your thing. Oh my god. This is a great episode 0.
What is your take on the auto battler genre?
I mean, if we want to make that our topic, I'm happy to make that our topic because I have a lot to say about Autobattlers.
I mean, we could. The thing is, I'm like kind of undereducated about it.
Oh sure.
I've played like a few rounds of the League of Legends one,
Okay.
and now I've also played a bunch of a couple of these different ones that are like in the Hearthstone battlegrounds
Sure.
style.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Okay. Well, we're doing this as our episode. I'm
This
making
is
a
episode 0 now.
yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. Let's go.
Today's date is Saturday, September 4th, 2021. Episode 0 of Pebble Path, the Pebble Path to game design.
I can't believe it.
Today's topic is going to be auto battlers and how they are both the most non-game, but also the most engaging thing that has come out since like Tetris.
Well, certainly of 2020 and 2021, it's
Exactly.
the most novel thing that's come out then.
Yeah, yeah. It falls into the genre of like the what is it? Like the waiting game. Like the game that like you just the idle game. Sorry, there we go. The idle game. And
And immediately,
mm,
immediately you've hooked me in to like why those are so enjoyable, because the like power progression is so real in the auto battlers.
exactly. And the same is true for things like idle games. The reason you really enjoy an idle game is because people just love seeing numbers go up. And an idle game is generally always like a PvE kind of system. And that's something a lot of times people just like Cookie Clicker. Cookie Clicker was so freaking huge when that first came out. And it's still pretty good. Adventure Capitalist being the next game that's really taking Cookie Clicker to the next level with actual like quests and adventures and so on and so forth. And then Auto
Do you think?
Battlers came out. Go ahead, yes.
Mm, do you think that there were games? Do you think that there were like people who tried to make a competitive cookie clicker style game, but then found like ran into some sort of trouble, and we just never saw that. There's a graveyard stuffed with those attempts before Auto Battlers came out.
Absolutely. I want to say they died somewhere in like I want to say Congregate Armor Games. It was definitely a flash game
Mm.
that somebody tried to do, and it did not flesh out because it's really hard to get like PvP netcode for something that is essentially auto clicker.
And I feel as though like I tried to make one. I mean, this is
Okay.
where oh, Lane, how do you know that this was correct? Oh, because I also did it. I
Oh
was
my
I
god.
was I was tempted in by it, and this was like 3 years ago. So I'm not going to say that I predicted the auto battlers at
Sure,
all,
sure.
but because mine was it was like hospital versus hospital, and you were trying to like make a lot of money and then like go like send people to sabotage the other person's hospital.
Oh my god.
Yeah, the game was called Blood Money. Anyway,
I like it.
The problem was that like that I ran into, and I do think that Autobattlers have a hint of this, is because incremental games are so often you like grow quadratically or exponentially or whatever, and so if you are against your opponent. And they have just like scaled like 10% slower. You are light years ahead of them, and so there's just no like real competition at all. And so I think that's one of the biggest problem, like things to solve.
Yes, and I think a lot of auto battlers have solved this with the randomization of attacks, because in the world of perfect strategy, comes perfect execution, and that's kind of where chess comes into, which is why Dota chess is why it was called Dota chess, as one of the first like big auto battlers to come to light, and then I think League of Legends came second. And then Hearthstone Battlegrounds came a little bit afterwards, but they were all flavor like in beta. Because as soon as Dota chess became a thing, everyone was in development, like well early on.
Yeah. I'm sure that as soon as Dota started, everybody else jumped on board. They saw the writing on the wall. Now, do you have any thoughts on why? And you might know the history of these games better than I do. Why is it that those things you mentioned are three sort of AAA titles in a row that came out with this before indie did it? Like this is an area where indie just totally did not innovate, or is there something about the development of the Dota one that I don't understand? Like was it a mod that was developed by users?
I'm gonna give this a quick Google, because that's the power. Of the power of internet here.
Might as well use it.
Yeah, and it looks like officially Dota, according to Wikipedia, was the first one before any other game. According to Wikipedia. Nope, I lied. It traces back all the way to Pokemon Defense, tower defense mode in Warcraft 3.
No way.
Yes.
And that by the way, I still think that like Warcraft 3 like is still kind of a place where if you are looking for the next big thing to work on, I would like totally go back and look at the modes there. I think there are still a couple of games like the Kodo Tag and Dark Deeds that are just totally underexploited.
Those
like I think that
classics. Oh my god, go on.
I still haven't seen like a AA game that's based on either of those, and I would absolutely like fork over.
I agree, actually, because like there are even some StarCraft 2 games that I would love to play. Not necessarily like Poker Defense or I don't know, Lotto Defense is also very, very bad, but they're both very fun games by all means, but they're not quite the same element here, because what's biggest about this game is that it is PvP, whereas a lot of those things are like PvE-esque elements.
Yes. Okay. So going back to auto battlers and the randomization of attacks, I think like this is something that good old Mark Rosewater at Wizards has said a number of times, that he thinks that it's an advantage that games like Magic and Eternal have over Hearthstone, which is that because they have that like randomization element of like, will you have enough land resources to cast your stuff? Yes. Like that's the thing that like most players think is a really bad thing, but from a top down, like from a design perspective, they really like the fact that if you're like an expert player, you can 10% of the time just not draw the stuff that you need and lose, like take an L to an amateur like me.
Yeah.
And so that gives me a chance to like to win, and it means that every game has that possibility of my stuff could overperform, or like so. There's always a possibility. I think I agree that that's an essential part of the recipe in Auto Battlers, where I feel like I'm never totally hopeless.
Yes, I would say there are so many instances, and I if you haven't looked at Hearthstone's, gosh, I don't remember the application, but there's like an auto battle application that you could install that will calculate your odds of winning and odds of loss from the start of battle.
I actually have that turned off right now because the surprise is more fun.
Exactly, and I generally play it on my phone in bed and stuff like that when I'm like about to go to sleep. which was what I was doing last night, and may or may not have caused me to oversleep. Uh, but uh, but the thing about Autobattlers is right, because there is that they need a sense of randomness to allow the player gap, or like the skill gap, to bridge in new players, because a new player could win on their first attempt. It's completely reasonable because of their luck, because of their draw, because of how they position things. Sure. But you gotta have that element of, yes, that randomness where the new player can always beat the tried and true star.
I think that like another essential part of this is there have to be some elements of disruption. You have to be able to like there have to be some elements, and like Hearthstone Battlegrounds has only like a few elements of this. It just has like the ghoul to like disrupt your opponent's divine shields.
Right.
But like, have you ever played one called Storybook Brawl?
No, what is this?
Oh, okay. If you want to play, it is the dream quest to Hearthstone's Slay the Spire, where it's like the like trickier, more technical one. It's uglier, but it's more beautiful. Like it's even more beautiful from a design perspective. Where like if you play Storybook Brawl, the heads will explode, because this is a game where it's like 25% of the minions are like the ghoul in Hearthstone Battlegrounds. Like there are so many cards that are just there to pick apart specific strategies that your opponents might have at the end game. So scouting what your opponent is doing, and then I have been screenshotting the screen at the beginning of most fights so that I can figure out like what is the thing I need to do to beat this guy.
Oh my god.
And so what I like about this is that what it does is, like, sometimes in HSBG you will find yourself in a situation where, oh, my opponent's board is just mine, but it's like 50% stronger. I have no chance of winning. Whereas because of the counterplay elements in Storybook, like oftentimes there is still that 10% chance that you could beat somebody if your like countering strategy goes right.
I'm watching this right now. This is the power of Google again, of the internet being. Oh my god, this is straight up Battlegrounds.
It is so Battlegrounds. It is so Battlegrounds. Yes.
I'm intrigued by the frontline backline though. I really am. I'm so curious about this.
Yeah, there's a little bit extra positioning, and then I think that you'll find the 3 treasure slots, which are just 3 like passive enchantments that you can have.
I see.
It adds a lot of flexibility to what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, I'm installing now, so that's what I have to say here.
Yeah.
Because I am intrigued, because this game, like you say, looks like it has like a more like of a fencing element, because of the fact that you get treasures, because of the fact that there are a lot of counterplay. It doesn't show much on the minion side of things, but presuming that there is a lot of like literally just like aces, which is like a Magic term of that. If you just sideboard your ace, which is literally when you play like modern and stuff like that, like you pick the card that is gonna be, so like you go into match 1, completely blind, you don't know who they are, and you're like, oh, I'm up against an artifact player, and your sideboard has an ace, which is like a card that says artifacts have upkeep, have a 1 mana upkeep on the beginning of the turn, that if you don't pay, they have to sacrifice a artifact for the cost of, if they don't pay 1 mana. And in the artifact, and in an affinity deck, even their lands are artifact lands, so they have to pay mana to keep their lands. And if you draw that turn 2 and they don't have a thing to resolve it, or to like remove it, they basically lose.
And that has that giant aspect of it where like the game 1 in Magic is oftentimes like there are some matchups that are like literally 90-10, but
right.
After sideboarding, that is oftentimes much less the case. And I suppose that this could be a thing that you talk about with Autobattlers, because one thing that I love in Storybook is that you can actually you can swap things that are in your hand with stuff that's on, like, so you have like a backbench, and you can hold those and you can like swap them with your active guys, so you can keep a sideboard for when you're down to the last 2 opponents. You can keep some guys that like will be useful later on.
Oh my god, this game has ranged attackers, that they attack and don't get dealt damage. What?
Yes. Yes.
This game is fabulous.
Okay. So returning to like the first few Autobattlers that came out. I mean, why do you think it was AAA companies that put out the first few?
Oh my goodness. I would say it's because I want to say specifically the Dota people. They are people who love something that is both niche and new. Yeah, and the Dota people are like when they made Dota 2, that was probably a really big thing for them, and they haven't made anything since. I don't even think they're gonna make a Dota 3 for a long time because of how concrete they are on their Dota 2 ways. But somebody said, I'm pretty sure somebody showed up and was like, hey, you know what? We can make this game that reuses the assets and the animations, the art, the music, sound effects, equipment, and we can apply this to a new game. And somebody said like, oh yes, let me get you a small team and go. And this is definitely at the higher level, but that's immediately a good game pitch.
Yes, I think that there may be something about the size and simultaneity. Stay with me for a second.
Yeah, hit me.
About the amount of like information that you need to like process while you're playing one of these games, where they can only really work if they have a time limit. And there has to be a complexity level of a lot of stuff going on at once. So there's a sense in which, like, if the game piggybacks on existing information, then it can deliver a product that would never work as an indie game. Like, you would never have like the very first Auto Battler come out of like de novo because like it's too complicated. There's nothing for it to piggyback on. And in order for it to work, you have to have a big pool of players so that there's always at least 8 people waiting in the queue ready to play.
That is.
So I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, please.
No, that was it. I was just agreeing with you because you were correct. An Auto Battler only functions well when there is a big pool of players that are always there. Because if you had an Auto Battler and you had to wait like a minute between queues, that's not terrible, but that's going to turn off a lot of people already from that game.
How often do you think that there are any games that are doing the Fortnite model where they are populating the battleground queue with bots?
Oh my god. I want to say not.
Yeah, so people who I've talked to in the industry are like always like, okay, we don't use bots, or like other games don't use bots.
Right.
And I've always kind of wondered, like, there are so many people who talk about like like game development as a book of underhanded tricks to make players feel better.
Correct.
What do you think is pushing them away from using bots in order to make up the average player be like, oh, I'm averaging like third or fourth place in these things. I must be better than average.
Oh my god. I want to say, oh gosh, I just really want to say that it's probably the actual player feel for this game, and I think it's just a part of the player experience. But that's a weak answer. That's just an answer I pulled up because you asked the hard question.
Well, I suppose that like I am currently like making a mobile game where like for my day job,
yes,
where we very much have a like handcrafted player experience where like we will do matchmaking, and like oftentimes you're up against a real player, but if you have lost too much recently, we'll serve you some like weak like either bots or like games that are crafted like from replays from other players.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just so like smoke and mirrors, and like what's interesting to me is that Fortnite, you can absolutely tell, I think, looking at like, I mean, people like point this out in World of Warcraft all the time.
Yeah.
Of course, that game is like 1/3 bots or more at this point.
Yep.
But like when it's in 3D, you can and like you have real time. You can just like
Action
look at
skills.
somebody and see how they're moving.
Yep.
Yeah, like it's so much more obvious that a person is a bot. Whereas in Battlegrounds, you are like I don't know, like you just get a thimble full of information there. And I feel like it would be so like easy to craft those bots.
Absolutely, I agree to this, and I think you have a very, very good answer for this, because I want to say, is that game you're working on competitive?
Well, okay, so Peter, this is like you're asking a good question here because we have multiple different modes,
Sure.
and so there is a versus mode where that's the smoke and mirror one, and that's where you're playing like best of ones.
Sure, yeah.
And so best of ones, it's gonna be, it's gonna be very like
hit and run. That's it.
Exactly. So like there's so little information like that you expect that it's very easy to bamboozle people. But we also have a tournament mode where you engage with a lot more people, and all the names of all the like winners are public.
Yes.
And so us botting there would be completely foolish. It would,
no.
It would take so much away from how much people believe in that mode.
Exactly.
And so man, I think that like where you would bot in HSBG, I think if I were the like mustache twirling designer for that company, would be maybe a little bit at the bottom so that new players have a better new user experience, and then not at all at the top where like players will come to know each other better over time.
Exactly. No, that is literally what I was gonna say. Is that they probably, if they do bots, it's at the entry level where players are like a bunch of new players are coming in. And that's only if there's like a need for them. But at the high level, absolutely not.
What I'm wondering is, if I was going to launch my brand new Autobattler here, or literally any game that requires like 8 people, what do you think about that model? Like when the game is first starting and you need to have those queues with people in them. How many new indie games have been just butchered, like never took off because they couldn't get the player base? Ooh. And then 2, is it worth it to create bots at that low level? I mean, even if they're obvious, even if you don't ever lie about it and you just say like this is to like pad out the experience.
Yes, I want to say yeah. Because in order to build that player base, you have to give the player like something to feel, something to enjoy. So I would say you're right. It would need like the first few games, players would actually be playing against a bot or playing against like also brand new players so they could understand and get a chance to learn. I don't think Autobattlers is a game that you want to play like a roguelite, where it is just absolutely punishing and brutal, and the new player has no chance to win. That's not why a player comes into an auto battler. They come to do something mindless, fun, and snacky.
Great. Well, let's talk about that some more. So, what sort of things attract you to an auto battler? Like, what creates that like snacky feeling where it becomes enjoyable to play multiple games?
Oh, it's just like what am I gonna do today? That's where that's why I say roguelike, because a roguelike's like what am I doing today? What's my run gonna be like? Like, who's my hero and what am I drawing up against? I say this because sometimes like I find something ridiculously fun and broken, and I was like, I really hope I can run that again, because it was enjoyable. Like to talk about Hearthstone Battlegrounds, they just had a patch come out where they unleashed a bunch of new content with new cards to remove things. It's fabulous. Yes. I got a combo last night, which was Beast Demons, and I got the beast that triggers a death rattle. I got the demon that gives its max HP to another monster. I got a golden. Then I also got the double the death rattle dude, the person that triggers your death rattle twice. So
did it give HP to itself?
Exactly. This got compounded that I was playing Alcazar, so I gave the bird Divine Shield, Wind Fury, so it would attack twice, trigger twice. I followed this up with the new monster that was Give a Beast Reborn. So I got the bird that triggered death rattles to have both Reborn and to have Divine Shield Wind Fury, so it would trigger it twice. Oh, and then I had 2 of them with both Reborn. So the trigger, so I stacked it in the trigger that when they died, it would be the first one to attack again, because you put it on the farthest left. So that's how that trigger stacks.
Incidentally, that snake scares me.
That snake's amazing.
I can't believe that they put that thing in there.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I haven't checked the stats yet, but like Beast has to be just with a bullet the #1 thing, right? Because of the snake.
It is very good, but I would say it's. I think it could still lose to dragons.
Are you a mech believer?
I think I like dragons a lot. I like dragons a lot.
And not just because of the Whelp Keeper bug, right?
No. I like because of the way it curves out. The rank 3-4 is so strong for dragons, and it's so easy to get to 4. It really is.
So what they did with this pack is something that I have never seen before. I've seen people do this bit by bit as they develop games, but never all at once like this. So what they did there was they essentially sheared off 40%, the 40% of minions in that mode.
Yeah.
That are the most boring.
Yeah.
They just took all the ones that don't develop a strategy in a interesting way, and they just removed them, and they replaced them with ones that do have more text and more interesting abilities.
Straight up. And I 100% agree. That is something that they needed to do, along with the damage cap. And I sent you a picture, so you can take a look at this. It's ridiculous.
And so what they effectively did here was this is absurd, Peter.
I know.
Is that 4,304 health I see there?
That's correct. On a 7 attack snake with taunt.
With 7 attack. So, and I see that your opponents here have 40 to 50 health. How long did this take to play out?
A minute, 2 minutes. But I won.
Did you? Yeah, I can kind of see that. But did you have any time to like buy stuff in the round after this?
I think it was like 10, 15 seconds, something like that. But yeah, I'm sure other people are gonna figure out these kind of things. But yeah, but this is the exciting part of an auto battler is when you make these changes. It's the game itself was like not necessarily solved. But it was like these are the strategies, these are the metas. This is where Autobattlers kind of lose their fun. Is that when somebody figures out the meta and the strategy, that becomes like the play and the way to go and the way to run the game. And that takes away so much of the fun and the customization of what people would like approach a game for. Because a lot of times when people want to play a game, it's to express themselves or to escape, to do something fun. And if there's a chess-like strategy that's been already like, oh, this is the way to play to win, then that sucks out a lot of the fun of that game.
Yes. Now, do you think that there is a sort of a requirement when you're making one of these things to commit to stirring the pot a little bit over time? Like for example, is there a auto battler that has a set of content that is perfect, or is it always better to be changing things, swapping them in and out to keep people in the state of adapting and to new content?
I would say for what the auto battler wants to give players for an experience, which I feel is like the intended experience for an auto battler is to be light, enjoyable, not overly thinky. Like you have to make some medium level decisions. And then at the like whatever 8,000 plus rank tier, then you're making a lot of heavy important decisions because you're playing for points at that point. But no, yeah, you want to shake it up. You want to stir the pot because making players make interesting decisions and making players have like making the game hard for them so they have like limited space. That is the creative area that players want. They don't realize it, but they do.
They definitely do. And I think that this goes hand in hand with the biggest reason that I play these, certainly, and you touched on this earlier, is the discovery. And if there's no more to discover, then it sort of becomes a dead game over time.
Yeah.
Now, they have this leverage here, and I think that this is going to be something that I'll probably come back to many times as we do this show together, which is they have this like wonderful situation where right now they could add like one or two new minions, and they might be able to like open up like 15 different synergies with other minions,
Yes.
right? And so like adding a relatively small amount of content has a huge amount of player discovery, but they have to balance this with the fact that if they had like 80 minions in the game, if they had doubled the number of different minions in the game, what would it do? I mean, there would definitely be some information overwhelm and that they would inflict on new players,
Yes.
but that would also be bad in a way for top level players. So like why do you think that they have the amount of content that they do? Why don't they have like twice as many different types of minions?
Because I think it's because like one of the core elements of Autobattler is often triples, and if you increase the pool of monsters, you just get less of them, and triples are an exciting part of the game. Like generally, like not all the triples are great, and that's actually kind of why they took out those blah minions in the first set, because some of those triples just sucked. they were just bad.
Oh,
but,
yeah. But when it's just like bigger stats, as many of those were, yes.
Yeah. But a lot of the triples in this new set really make a difference. Like there's just some crazy stuff you can do with triples in this game, and I think that's why they keep the pool size small, because it's also an expected experience. Because when players come into this, they want to be able to get a couple triples here and there, or they kind of want to come in with a mindset and the plan and the strategy. If you open up the pool to like 80 different types of monsters, you have almost like that becomes like more of a draft, which is like the arena. And then at that point, you're just playing arena, less auto battler. I mean, it's arena with random attacks, and that's not as fun. By all means, no.
I've been wondering if there is something about the number, like, and I don't actually know the total number of minions in Hearthstone and Battlegrounds, but I do feel like it's around, like I think I said 80 earlier, but unfortunately, I actually think that is close to the number of minions that there are here. So like it's like 60, 70, something like that. And I know, and you'll be familiar with this, that in Magic development, they will intentionally be like, okay, some of these cards are going to be way better than others, and some cards are going to be very weak, so that they can keep the number of cards that a player thinks about in the standard environment to within a certain tolerance. So like there might be like 60 to 100 relevant cards in the standard environment.
Yes.
And like I wonder if that has been common across many different types of games, where somewhere between 60 and 100 things that you have to hold in your mind is the right feeling number for across many different genres.
I want to say that's very, very, very true. In that, oh gosh, I love Magic design. They intentionally design bad cards so that the good cards actually feel like good cards. Because if it was just all good cards, then no card would have high. There wouldn't be a high and low interest curve, which is the thing that you want in your game.
Now, I have like a Magic like tangent for you, which is you are a person who helps a lot of new and semi-new game developers work on board games. Yeah. Am I correct in this?
Yes, that is correct.
Wow. Okay. How did I do it? Now I could just read you like a book. Now, the question that's been on my mind is that I have dabbled in this myself, and I have noticed that when I'm playtesting games with people, very frequently, and by the way, I'm like so subject to this as well. I'm not going to just point fingers, but I have had so many people say things along the lines of, "Well, Magic does things this way," or like insert other AAA game does things this way. You should consider doing that as well. And so, do you find that a lot? And like what I'm getting at here is, as a like a new game, or as a game that is meant to be humbler, like my game just wants to take like 20 minutes of your time and be a very casual light experience.
Yeah.
I don't want to require that my audience gets really invested in the game the way that a Magic audience does. So do you find like the Magic design like taking up too much brain space of developers that you work with? I'll leave it there.
I would say no. Thankfully, not a lot. A lot of people.
Good, good.
Yeah, a lot of people that are making. There are not many people that making like a TCG, CCG these days because there's such a fierce competitive space. And if someone is doing that, like they just go digital. I would straight up just say like this is probably a better idea at a digital aspect. Very few games, in the TCG, CCG physical aspect make it. With that said, though, I've seen many really cool like set deck battlers. So like you buy this like a pack and it has like a deck in it, and like one of them being like, oh god, what is it? Like Seize the Imperium, which is a great local Minnesota game that was like kind of like teetering on getting Kickstarter and stuff like that. But it was fantastic. Lots of great depth, lots of fun mechanics. But it was very overwhelming when they first initially had their pitch because they basically had like a plethora of Magic and Hearthstone mechanics pulled into it in a physical format, which at face value and at sentence, like as it written down on text, sounds amazing. But that's a lot to like expect of the player to know immediately. So what they had to do, and I helped them teach, I helped them break it down, and that they had their core set, which teaches like a lot of the basic mechanics, and they have the expansions that teach all the more advanced things. And that's how like you should introduce a new game like if you're trying to bring Magic but like reinvent it, you have to introduce it in small steps. You just don't slap the player with the rule and be like, here's 12 mechanics that that you need to memorize because your opponent could have these things and they are game shattering when they play them, so you better be ready. No, that's not good game feel.
Do you like? Did they end up, or are they planning to end up selling the game in a state where it would have a basic version and then also like expansion or level up content within the same box?
I think that was their plan, and that like you would kickstart, get the base game, and then you would also like be able to like upgrade or like back at higher levels that would include the expansions. That was their plan.
Okay. Yeah. I want to say that I adore that for the same reason I adore it when you like unlock new, not necessarily more powerful, but more complicated items when you like go through a roguelike.
Exactly. But to like bring up the Magic thing, bring it full circle. Oh gosh, no, I had a thought. Where was it? I lost it. Oh, Pokemon Unite. There we go. Pokemon Unite. I've been diving super hard into Pokemon Unite. I'm at Veteran 3 right now, which is
that's awesome.
Serviceable. I only have like for those listening up to episode 0, which may or may not come out at some point, but at the time it is September 4th. I have only like I have maxed out. Oh, sorry, I'm not maxed. I have no maxed out items. Everything is at like level 10 at best for all my equipments and my held items, because the grind is absolutely absurd to get to a level 20 held item. But that's their bar, and that's Pokemon Unite's thing. So I'm not entirely sure if I'm ever going to get to Masters anytime soon. But the point I bring up Pokemon Unite is because you mentioned something about approachability and saying that, oh, like you just want this game to take a minute amount of your time, and it respects the players, so it's always going to end at this point, all this good stuff.
Yes.
Pokemon Unite is a fabulous version of League of Legends. Like, it is so light and snacky that even if you lose and it's a crushing 700-0 defeat, it only took 10 minutes of your time. No matter what, it only took 10 minutes of your time. It's now perfectly serviceable.
This is like the most heavenly thing that I've ever heard, and I still have not played Pokemon Unite. In all honesty, but I feel like this is a character flaw that I haven't played this game, because I have complained on 100 occasions that if and you got to tell me, like, have MOBAs become any better at dealing with this? Where like my experience with League of Legends is very clouded by the experience of we're down 10% at like the 10-minute mark.
Yep.
And so that means that we'll probably have a like 95% chance of losing, but it's going to take another 35 minutes for everybody to realize that we're going to lose.
Oh my god. So Pokemon Unite does fix this.
Yes.
I think you can surrender closer to like the 5-minute mark, which is way better because the game is only 10 minutes long. There's one thing I want to say about Pokemon Unite is that there is so many other design issues that I have problems with, which is fine because I think the playtime of 10 minutes is something so brand new to the mobile world that those design flaws, though blatant, are like respectable for this time being, and then they'll have to like fix the balance later.
Do you think for new game developers, would you by and large recommend that people stick to very short games?
Oh God, I want to say no because there is so much to be done with like an RPG because RPGs are still kicking it. There's so many things that are coming out on like Omori finally came out like earlier last year or this year. Gosh, that was a long time ago. But that game had a 7-year weird development time. But that game is fabulous. Omori is like a psychological horror RPG game. Made in RPG Maker ? But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, no. If you're an indie developer, you shouldn't be focusing on gameplay or the time of play. You should be focusing on your gameplay mechanics and things like that. And this is because you're a first-time developer or so on and so forth for indie. Eventually, you want to look at gameplay time or time of play. But that's like a next step. That's like the after you get the game and it's fun and then people enjoy it and they want to play more of it. Then you're like, okay, let's work on this now.
I appreciate the responsible answer to that question because
Yes.
I definitely am a person who's like gets really really excited about stuff, and so the fact that short games are such it's such a like it's an added salt and sugar that you can put on a lot of things that just
Yeah.
instantly makes it better. Like if
Yeah.
League of Legends were half as long, I would be like, yes, it's a wonderful
Yes.
game. And so I'm so like drawn towards like what else can I fix by making it really short.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm googling Omori and this looks fantastic. Thank you for bringing this up.
Yeah, I recommend watching. I watched Manly Badass Hero, who does like a nice mixture of like gameplay and commentary.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the YouTuber I follow for a lot of like horror games and stuff or horror RPG Maker stuff. They play a plethora of like things that I myself would never play. So that's like a person I follow for those reasons. But shout outs to Manly Badass Hero. I am not sponsored.
Oh man.
Yes.
Okay, I gotta give this a try. This looks gorgeous.
Yeah. But yeah, no. See, like, there's things about that. Like, even okay. So to bring it back on topic for Autobattlers.
Autobattlers?
Yeah, exactly. Our original topic. But Pokemon Unite brings a very strict cut down 10-minute experience of something that's much much heavier, and that's where Autobattlers come into play too. In that it takes an experience and mechanics of like a very very big game like League of Legends has positions, attacking elements, and equipments. Hearthstone has stats and synergies. That's why you play Hearthstone a lot, and you have like a hero with a hero power. Like that's why you play Hearthstone. You have a hero, a deck, and then you play around the synergy and a specific battle plan. Dota chess has got shenanigans, and so like that's why the auto battler comes to play. Is that here's a game that has very similar mechanics that you are used to, and here's a fun twist on it, which is why each of their auto battler, auto chess, and stuff like that make a difference. And it's very engaging to a new player because it's like, oh, here's something familiar. Here's a twist, and all you gotta do is commit just a little, make some micro decisions, and you have a good time. Done. Game, set, match.
It feels as though like what it's doing in a sense is it's like the drafting in like a Magic limited draft is all about is like solving problems, covering holes, but then building synergies. And it feels like what the auto battlers have done is they have maximized, or they've really cranked up the strength of the synergies, so that like oftentimes these games feel all about the synergies. And then what they've done is they made it so because you're playing as you're drafting, it takes the draft and it makes it like the whole experience. You know what I mean?
Yes. I love this. I love this. I love that observation.
So it's somewhat similar to like playing like Sushi Go, right? Where like the draft is the entire experience, but it's it's like taking the synergies between the cards there and just making it way more complex. So what I'm wondering is there are there other ways that this could be done? For example, did you ever play in Hearthstone the duels mode?
Yeah. Oh god, that mode is like brutal. But go on.
Yeah, well, the thing that I find that is brutal about that is like that you each on each step, like you're drafting as you go,
Mhm.
but you are playing entire games of Hearthstone in between each time. Like I feel like in duels, it would be like if you're like drafting like or sorry in battlegrounds, it's like if you're drafting like Innistrad or something, but every like couple of times you pick a card, your deck just gets auto checked for like how powerful it is or
Yeah.
something like that. And it's very very fast, and so the drafting is like dominates the experience. It's like 80% draft and 20% fighting, whereas in duels it's like the other way around. And it's really, really long, and you spend less time making the decisions in the draft. And so I guess like what I'm wondering is like so far the auto battlers have had the like experience of League of Legends, and they have the like with an action RPG sort of shell,
Yeah.
and in Hearthstone they have a like card card sort of shell. Are there any other shells that you would like to see have a auto battler treatment?
Yeah. So I actually want to bring up Seven Wonders. The old
Oh yes.
Seven Wonders has a perfect draft plus combat cycle. It's very
Mm-hmm.
minor, and the game is strictly about drafting and getting points. But
Yeah.
there is a tiny, tiny combat element to it that players very much care about. So,
And
I'm just
and
so,
that
go ahead.
and that like combat element also kind of plays out during the draft, right? Like it's there,
Exactly.
like yes, there is like my army versus your army, but there's also the deal where like oh like Peter's the biggest threat at the table. He has like three cuneiform tablets. I'm just gonna take one of those to deny him that power, and
Exactly.
so you get to like fight each other during the draft phase itself.
Yeah. And that's why I actually really wanted to like it's like when you said the observation of like it's draft plus combat, I'm like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it made me think of Seven Wonders because it does do that. You are
Mm-hmm.
strictly drafting, and like there's hate picks and hate drafts, and that's kind of like your combat mechanic in Seven Wonders. But there's literally a sword check to see who drafted the most military, and that could be something that I would like to see more games do because like the military should actually be like different military units, and if you could digitize it and make it so that it could attack each other, or like maybe play a tiny game of meta chess where all players with military units like because you like so you're oh gosh this goes into our conversation that we had like off talk where you're combining two different game mechanics
Mm.
with like what did you call it, act blazer or
Yeah, I called it Razor Blazer.
razor blazer, there we go. Dang it, I was so close.
Mhm.
But yeah, basically like combining two different genres for no reason, for the fun of it. And I'd love to see like a Seven Wonders meets Auto Battler.
Well, okay, so this is a thing that I think that we'll probably experience quite a bit
Mm,
as we talk about different games, which is that you sort of like start with a original idea, right?
mm.
Like, oh, let's do that, but then you like start pushing it one way or another in your mind and realize, oh shoot, like oh, we've actually stumbled into a place of the game making terrain that has already been discovered. Because
Yes,
like to a degree, if you just like make it so that the drafting part bleeds in with the combat or the action part, you just arrive at ascension, right?
yeah.
So like shoot, I had something where I wanted to go with that, but I'm dropping it. You want to pick up anywhere?
Yeah, it's just like Ascension's different though. Ascension is like way more strategic, and and that's what I'm thinking. I want to take away like the layer of the strategy because that's where the auto battler comes into play. Because players who like get the perfect draft, get that like draw the perfect hand, it's like oh I'm just gonna win, and like that's not as exciting. But the auto battler element adds the element of randomness that makes it fair for the lower skill players to have a higher chance of winning, and makes and it basically brings the game match down closer to like the 50-50%, which I think is a little bit more serviceable for these kind of games. Granted, it's up to the player to raise that win percentage on their own through their skill, through their knowledge, through their positioning, so on and so forth. And I think if you combined a game like Seven Wonders that like had outside elements, and as opposed to like a HP amount, which is very similar. That's like, and here's the thing that I would like to take away and like turn Autobattlers on their head is, as opposed to killing a player, the goal is a race to 100 points or something like that, or a race to a certain amount of goals, or something like a stretch, whatever. Like again, a race to 100 points, and you're still battling and you're still like striving to do things, but the way you go about it is the first player to get 100 points. It's tied up to matchups, and the way you draft and the things you are picking for your team earn you different points based on how they win, how they position, so on and so forth. And so the battles earn you points, and yeah, that's where I'd like to twist it. Go ahead.
So I am concerned here, Peter. I feel like I need to like step in and save you from yourself. Do a little intervention here.
Go ahead.
Now I'm like only like 26% serious about this, but I feel as though the race to the top sort of model where you're like, oh, we're gonna like race towards some positive goal is a very board gamey sort of solution to this sort of thing.
Yes.
And feel free, I'm very open to some like a dueling on this one. But what I'm saying is that like the fact that in an online auto battler that you get knocked out when you die is a thing that works for the online environment, because then that player can just move on to the next game.
Yes.
Whereas in a positivist game where you're like racing towards some high goal, then like you're putting people in a situation where realistically I can't win, but I'm still like sort of obligated to be in this game because I haven't been kicked out yet.
You are 100% correct, and that is that you should feel closer to like the 60-70% strength, because you are 100% correct in that.
So, but at the same time, does that mean that sort of model can't exist? I just feel like there's a difficult design like hurdle to overcome there.
I could say there are like mechanics in my mindset that I think I immediately want to fix. Like that could fix this, being like a gap, like there's a bar. Like every round, there's like a bar of points that you need to like you have to race this bar, and if you fall below the bar, you get kicked. You get kicked. Okay.
Yeah.
That's my estimate. I'm like, that's my quick fix for this issue, because that's a legitimate issue. It really is.
honestly, like that immediately seems cool, and that kind of reminds me of I don't know if Age of Empires had this, but certainly Rise of Nations did, where like there was that score race mode,
yes,
and you had that like bar chasing you, and my goodness, was that like a anxiety producing, but also very fun stress feeling of being like right up against that bar.
So that's the feel I want to push in this game, being like an auto battler that forces a player to think positively, versus like, oh, what are my matchups? What am I playing against? What is my synergy?
Yeah. Okay. Immediately, I'm back on board. That sounds sweet. I love the bar. Cool. So, okay, on that subject, like massive tangent, but as a like board game aficionado, Peter, my question to you is, how do you feel about elimination in board games in real life? Because like there's a lot of push against games that like eliminate players. Do you think that is like how do you feel about that?
For me, it's mechanic synergy. That's what I'm looking for. Whenever I see player elimination, doesn't mesh well with the mechanics of the game. Such as one of my biggest issue is kind of like Hero Realms, multiplayer Hero Realms. Losing in Hero Realms feels terrible. Because because like you said before, you have to watch the rest of the game play out, regardless if you win or lose, and it's a very, very clear 0-1. Like you either 0, lose, or win 1. That's how hero rounds work. But in a game that's like a hidden roles game, like Werewolf or stuff like that, losing in those games is fun. Losing in like Secret Hitler is like an amazing thing to experience, because those games embrace their losses.
And so often they have a story at the table, that it continues to be good to watch, and you have some investment in your side, so you're rooting for that team. Yes,
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah, and like to bring it to like a video game aspect, like Among Us, which is slowly like fallen off the radar, but while in its prime, Among Us losing was amazing because people were talking mad shit about each other, like, "Oh, I knew it," kind of thing. Like that is where losing in Among Us is perfectly serviceable. Like the mechanics mesh very well in that game.
So, on the subject of elimination, in auto battlers, you will sometimes just get eliminated like out of nowhere by somebody who's just smoking everybody, who's like
Yes,
super powerful.
yes,
I wonder, like such a big part of these games is the synergy, is the pop off. Like I really feel as though like a big part of why they're popular is it feels like you're pulling the lever on a slot machine in a way. Like sometimes you're going to have this super huge combo, and sometimes you're going to not. It's never going to click, and
yeah,
that happens to everybody as you play the game. Now,
absolutely.
based on the popularity here, can we sort of surmise that that is a good thing? That the pleasure of popping off and like dominating and like just steamrolling everybody is worth it for the feeling that you might have 3 or 4 times where just like somebody else gets that and you just had no chance.
I want to say yes, in that a lot of these games are okay with positive negative player feel, and that's like that's a thing that in board games that matters a lot uh is the loss of fun for one player worth the positive fun of another player, and there's no exact equation for that, and that
And
skews
it's so
opinion.
hard.
Yeah,
It's so hard in board games, particularly because you will oftentimes play that board game. If you play it multiple times, you will oftentimes play it with that one little group.
yeah,
And so like in like Hearthstone Battlegrounds, if I like lose super hard to one group, if I run it again, I might be matched up against lower ranked players, people who make worse decisions, or people who just don't get lucky.
right.
Whereas like if I am playing a game with the same like table, like the same board game with the same group, I like will oftentimes get destroyed again and again and again by these people just because they all know the game better than I do, and there's not like a way that I can catch up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
no,
I feel like different tools are available for the two different genres.
absolutely. But I will say it's much more easier to do that in a digital space because you can just do a patch. If you do it in a board game, it's way harder. You have to like you gotta have your equations set out from the get go if you're making a board game, because if you ship it and it's all physical products, you really can't fix it. So you have to like you want to make sure your formula is correct. Whereas like a game like Call of Duty, which is okay having very skewed one-sided victories, for that game, is because it is a very fierce competitive game, and that's their go-to. They're just okay accepting that a player is gonna go on a kill streak, get like attack dogs, and just ruin people's day. But that's because they did well, and that's like, all right, we're just gonna reward a player for being good. Like that is completely the power experience that you want while playing Call of Duty.
Have you played board games that have patched their cards? That have like issued a bunch of errata for the or like balance errata for the cards?
Oh yeah. Cloudspire, notably Cloudspire here at Chip Theory Games, also another local Minnesota publisher.
Yeah, how did that go? How did that go? I've only ever seen it done one time by Fantasy Strike, and so I'm wondering like how did it go with that one?
Uh,
Because I'm very interested. Like I'm working on a board game right now that probably would benefit from a lot of that pot stirring type balance changes, and I'm wondering like how did it go for people who tried it?
I would say it's a little bit of a hassle for that game, meta wise, because it's a very big, lots of components like chips. They're chip theory games. You had to get like this balance patch, which is like an updated patch, where you got new components and you had to get rid of the old ones. Easier way to do this is Keyforge style. Keyforge has an online database of rules and metas and stuff like that, because uh, Keyforge is a game that they tried very hard, very hard to balance well. But players, of course, are going to break things and ask questions that developers, of course, don't have answers for.
Yes.
So what you could do is have that compendium, that rules compendium that is always being updated online, that like breaks and changes according to your will as a developer designer. So your card, regardless of what the cards say, the rules on the compendium are a verdict.
Did they did they end up making in Keyforge any like stat changes? Were there ever any moments where they're like the strength of this card is now 6, not 5?
Oh God, geez, I don't think so. I think they balance it in many other ways. Like one of them, oh God, gosh, I forgot the name of the card. I think it's called Bait and Switch.
Mm.
But Bait and Switch is,
They changed a card called Bait and Switch. I love it.
yeah, that card was like basically a 5% win rate swing. That's how
Oh,
strong that card was. If you played that card, you basically had 5% better chance of winning. That's how serious that card was, or something ridiculous like that.
I
Um,
am looking this up. I
yeah,
gotta see this.
yeah. Let me just Google this real quick. I'm pretty sure it's Keyforge Bait and Switch. Keyforge Bait and Switch. Is this the right one?
Oh,
Yep.
whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa. Like, if your opponent has more amber than you, steal 1 amber. Repeat this card's effect if your opponent still has more amber than you. What?
Yes. Yes. uh, in the Prime version when it first came out, it was repeated infinitely. It now has a cap of 2.
Yes. Okay,
That's
so this would be an example of the way the card works is different from how it appears on the card. And I know that in Magic they much prefer we're just going to ban a card instead of do that. But Keyforge
correct.
doesn't have that ability. Banning a card would mean literally like your 40 card deck just doesn't work anymore.
Exactly. It is unfunctional. But yes, that's how they balance this, and that's how they work it in the compendium. I don't think there's actually stat changes. I think it's more like nerfs and hits to how things function and play. But yeah, Bait and Switch was such a good card, and like every deck in competitive play for Keyforge had Bait and Switch in it to some degree. And as soon as this nerf came out, the meta changed and it was better, and everyone was like, all the people that had paid $100 for Bait and Switch decks were sad, but that's what you get because this is like Magic, and bans and nerfs and shit are gonna happen, so you better be ready.
Yes, and like I guess like going all the way back, like I feel like in when real strength the auto battlers have is that you don't build a collection. So like
Yeah,
everybody's like motivation is just I want this to be as good as possible. I want there to be a lot of really cool things to do, and I don't have a vested interest in certain cards working a certain way. And so it's like maybe it's like a harder version to monetize. And I don't know how like League of Legends monetizes its auto battler, but what I love about it is it's like the one game that I'm playing a lot these days
mm,
where I feel like everybody is on the same side. We all just want it to be good.
yeah.
And I feel like that's not the case with a lot of like PvP games.
That is correct. I think everyone that plays Battlegrounds wants it to be fair because they want a fair chance at winning.
Yes.
If
Now,
something,
they don't necessarily want it to be like 50-50-50-50-50. They want
no,
interesting stuff to happen. So
yes,
it being like rough is fine, but they want it to be good. And I feel like playing a game like just regular Hearthstone, like Hearthstone like standard, that's very much not the case where like people are very, very interested in having cards that beat them get nerfed.
yeah, exactly, and that is correct. I agree in this that Hearthstone's as a constructed format wants a more like edge case kind of game, but because of the randomness that's like because of standard being so calculated and so strategic like that's why
Mm.
that's why they're okay having something like a beat stick. But in Battlegrounds, and I think Kripparrian said it best because I watched a
Mm.
lot of them.
Mm.
They were so on board for having a damage limit, a damage cap, because it was you would get beat down by 20-30 points by somebody who high rolled so
Mm.
well that you never got a chance to play the game. Like that match was just like you were going to lose because of the way the RNG was coming out for this particular player, that there was no chance for you to win.
Oh, I feel like we need to do like an episode all about like ways to like soften RNG to like
Yeah.
make it feel better for people because there's so much you can do.
Yeah, and and with the latest patch, they introduced this 15 damage cap. I think 15 is a reasonable amount. I might want to lower it down to like 12 or 13 so that players get like additional chances. But 15 is just right because it's punishing enough that if you did really bad, you deserve to take 15 damage. But if you did absolutely horrendous, you're just not out of the game.
Yeah. Nobody's gonna take 15 damage and be like, "This is fine. Whatever. I can shrug off a few of those."
Yeah. But if you do it to like at 10 is too little for me. For whatever reason, I think 15 is just about right. I want to say it's a little high, but 10 is too little. You need to be more punished than 10 damage.
Yeah, 10 would be a big problem. I wouldn't I would say that, like, for example, if you were patches and you could just say, like, at a certain point, I basically have essentially 5 ice blocks. So I can like invest in stuff now that won't pay off for like 5 turns, but by God, is it going to pop off in 5 turns? Like that's having to care too little about the present.
Exactly.
And I think that they have to balance, like, okay, you can take Bran, but you're going to be weaker now, but you're going to be stronger 3 turns from now. And the game becomes richer as those sorts of decisions become more meaningful.
So I did something I've always wanted to do in Hearthstone, which was hold a 1-star gold card until rank 5. Yeah, because you could just play it and get the 6 drop whenever you want later on because of this damage cap. I was like, oh, I'm going to be behind like this particular round because I'm going to hold this 1-star, this gold card. But I'm going to immediately rank up, spend the next turn ranking up. So I'm going to take the 15 because I know I won't die, but I can immediately play and get a 6-star on the next round. I'm like, oh, this is... Adding that damage cap allows new pathways of play, which is amazing.
When you talked about like a game that was like two pre-built decks made to have a good matchup against each other, the first thing I thought of was how like rarely it comes up in like standard Magic anyway, where you have these moments where you're like, okay, I'm not going to use my answer now, but I'm going to hold it. I'm going to take the chip damage so that I can play this, and it'll really pay off down the road. And I feel like a good legacy matchup will be just all about that. It'll be littered with that sort of thing.
Oh, 100%.
But like. There's enough matchups in Legacy where like one deck will just sort of like dominate the other one. We'll just sort of pave over the other one, and so having like those two pre-built decks. God, look, could you give me the name of that one more time? I want to check out what they're doing to make that matchup interesting.
Gosh,
it's like Imperium something or other.
Oh no, Seize the Imperium is different. That it is. Okay. These are pre-built decks, but they're it's more of like a starter deck kind of thing.
Starter deck. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not pre-built deck or matchups. There are other games that I've seen with people working on, like God, I can't think of it anymore. But Ananda, I'm not sure if you heard of them, but they're a local designer, and they also had this really interesting. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but you basically had like you were a monk versus a vampire. And you could actually like mishmash up two. It's like smash up kind of style, but combat. And every class and subgenre or trait had like a mechanic that you could mash together, which was really cool. But those were like pre-built sets that you could put together and you build a deck based off the like a class and a trait of some sort. But yeah, that game is also, I don't think it has come to fruition quite yet. But that's what I was talking about in terms of like a pre-built decks. Yeah.
Keyforge feels like it was made to maximize that feeling, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because so many of the cards have situationalness built into them.
Yeah.
Man, like I feel like maybe like that's a thing that like I feel like Vengeance was kind of like dipping a toe into that. Like it was like because like toward the end of development, like 4 or 5 years into it, we were like, okay, hold on. what if we had like ultimate abilities for the characters? Like what if we had like certain things that you could acquire that have like a 40, 50-second cooldown, but there's a situation where it'll really pay off.
Yeah.
And I wish we had figured that out earlier because I feel like a game that was more built around like shot calling and like, okay, we're gonna combine these abilities in this like wicked way,
Yeah.
would have been like, I don't know, we would have found the fun a lot faster if we had thought, oh yeah, why do literally every hero battler game have ultimates?
Yeah, and that's oh god. I don't think a auto battler needs ultimates. In oh sorry in like I take that back.
Yeah.
League of Legends require ultimates because that's like a spike. Like it's an exciting. Those are moments of what is it? Like a player's interest curve.
Mm-hmm.
The interest curve spikes when ultimates come into play with League of Legends. Battlegrounds doesn't need it at all. There's no such thing as an ultimate in Hearthstone, right?
Yeah, I sort of like. I wonder if it like. I don't think like that's a thing that they have avoided putting in their interface for a long time. There is no Llanowar elves in Hearthstone. There's like
Good.
only passive abilities in that game. You don't ever like right click a unit and tell it to use an ability.
Yeah.
But like I wonder if there's like a good room. And you're telling me that League of Legends has ultimates. Okay? I'll just stop here. How do those work?
Oh yeah, so like in League of Legends, as characters attack, they build up mana passively, and when their mana bars fill, they unleash their air quotes ultimate. So like their special attack, their special ability.
Okay. So it remains passive.
Yeah. But but for for Ezreal to do like a blink shot, their basic attack is like. So like I don't know the exact numbers, but their basic attack generates 20 mana, and at 40 mana they do a blink shot. So they teleport and they do a range attack that deals more damage, is magic based, and like procs all on hit effects, stuff like that. Or you have like a super crazy ultimate like I'm gonna go with Yasuo, who is whenever they get their when they get their full mana bar, they throw someone in the air, making them they cannot act. It's like basically a stun for like a second or two. It deals 3 attacks to them. So like that character's ultimate is way more impactful than Ezreal's, but it's all in your build. Like whatever items you give them makes a big difference on how they interact and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you, as the player, have much control over when these things trigger? And do you ever like have a situation where you try to either hurry it along or delay it so that it lines up with the right fight, or that 2 ultimates line up with each other, that kind of thing?
Yeah. And the answer is yeah. The player has position. They have items that they can trigger with. Like so, like there's just an item that says like it's a mana crystal. It gives a character, whoever you give it to, 20 mana at the start of the game. The start of the fight. So boom, immediately speeds them up. Or you can give them like a mana moon that says that whenever they attack, they generate, I don't know, 30% more mana, something like that. And so like the players, yes, they have agency when they can make those decisions, and also how you position them, because ranged attackers obviously can attack at ranged, and melee attackers have to attack at melee, because Ezreal, as I said earlier, is a ranged attacker, and Yasuo is a melee attacker. So their abilities are different in terms of how they charge, and also how often they attack is also how they charge. So yeah.
Do you find that the end of a lot of these games, where it's just like you versus another person, and you might have like 2 or 3 rounds in a row against them, do you find that like how do you feel about that phase of the game compared to the rest?
I would say it's it's more likely in League of Legends than it is in Hearthstone, because Hearthstone, if someone just wins in the end game, they're basically gonna you're either gonna blow them out or they're gonna blow you out. Very seldom do I see the run it back, the salty run backs in Hearthstone. But in League of Legends, it happens more frequently because of the way how randomization comes in, and so there is a pick and choose on like, okay, because in order to re-equip your items, you have to sell that character. When you sell that character, you get your items back for League of Legends, which allows you to make very, very high level meta decisions to be like, okay, well, I have a very, very strong AD carry, but they're all assassins, so my AD carry is gonna do nothing, even though they're a 3-star, like rank 3 gold, whatever. they're gonna just die immediately. So I have to sell them and like switch up my meta for picks on, like, maybe I need to make a more tankier team, but they have the good items that I can redistribute to make a different level of strategic change. So yes, League of Legends has a much higher like run it back and change a strategy very quickly kind of play. But no, I don't think that's present at all in Battlegrounds.
Yeah, you are doing what nobody else has ever done, which is tempted me very strongly to play some teamfight tactics, because that sort of thing where like you have scouted the other person and you're making decisions around what their board is like is something that is almost entirely absent in my life in Hearthstone Battlegrounds. Like so often you're going up against somebody with almost no information about what they have, and they give you a little bit where you can like mouse over them and see some information about their comp.
Yep.
But I would be so curious if there were a like dev version of that game where you got a lot more information about what the other person's comp was, so you were like more like actively countering what they're doing from an early moment. Like right now, I feel like 20 seconds every draft, unless you're Pirates, is spent basically just like waiting. And I wish it were like really thinking through your positioning so that you could like have the best chance against that person.
Yeah, but like that is present in Battlegrounds, but the screen watching, like the scouting, like you said, you're right. They have such limited information. I'm just like, oh, they're mechs. They probably have Divine Shield. I should probably put some Divine Shield poppers on the front. Like
now, doing that, like if they gave you, well, yes, but if they gave you that information, would the game become less snacky? Would it become more chess-like? Would it become more fatiguing to play?
I'd say at the higher level, yes, absolutely. At the level I'm at right now, no. But like no, right. So like to say like you should play Teamfight Tactics a little bit, because there's a lot to learn from there. It's not a perfectly solved game either. There's some balance issues and things like that, but they're very close. I think of all the Autobattlers that I've played so far, which with the exception of Storybook here, yeah, Teamfight Tactics has the best balance and the most like ease of access. They don't have the most ease of access. Hearthstone Battlegrounds has the best ease of access, I'd say.
Yes. I would say that like League of Legends and also Teamfight Tactics have done something which is like thrilling to me, which is that they have done this thing where there's like they have an audience of millions of people, but their games are very much not going to like the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, no.
You know, like they're very complicated, extremely complicated. There's so much going on, and they expect a lot out of their players.
I think that's completely okay, and
which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, and to bring up Pokemon Unite again, Pokemon Unite expects very little of their players.
and yet every time I talk to somebody about that game, they tell me that like the like level of homework that you have to do to get into it extremely low.
Yeah.
But they just get freaking wrecked by people on the ladder because the skill cap is pretty high.
Yeah, and because it's a MOBA, so the skill cap, the meta of it's very high, and they're slowly. My issue right now is that the meta is pretty stale because there's only a handful of Pokemon, but that's gonna get fixed immediately as they add more characters. Like Blastoise just got released this week or something like that, and and Blastoise is literally already making waves.
All right. Yeah. Well, I like turtles.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've got to jump in with that. That sounds awesome.
It's sweet. But I would like to call the time because it's an hour and 17 minutes, Lane. We could do this forever.
Easy. Yeah, absolutely. And now's a good time because I was gonna like start jumping into talking about like roguelike stuff that was related to this, and my goodness, that could be like its own show, or it could be multiple shows.
Yeah. We could do episode part 1, part 2, part 3, because there's a lot to talk about roguelikes.
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude. This is a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying that we're doing this, and looking forward to doing way more.
Right. Ooh. So, for those of you that are watching this video, because I am recording a video, though it's just a black screen, I could probably insert some pictures and stuff of the things we talked about. This will probably go on YouTube for the time being, just because I've enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah.
And then I guess if you're liking it, like, comment, subscribe, and follow for the next episode that's going to come up at some point. But And the next episode, what do we want to talk about? Is the next episode actually is episode 1 gonna be roguelikes? Because we can do that.
I was gonna specifically say that the root of that episode, and by the way, I totally like I'm leaning towards having episodes have like a root instead of a subject.
Okay.
Because I don't want us to feel like we're constrained. I want us to be able to feel like we can like rove over the landscape of different games.
I like this. It's a root. Our root episode. Okay.
Yes. So the root, the stem of this next one is I think going to be roguelike progression systems. What do you think about that?
Roguelike progressions. I like this. Knowing that our show is more about like, we're just going to talk games for an hour, and here's the initial starting topic, and whatever tangents we run off of, because I think that's just fun, because I think we're doing this because this is a good time, and I think we've said a lot of fun and interesting things to like a viewer or a listener would be like, oh yeah, this is true.
Oh, and like regardless, I have learned some things, and I'm going to be putting some things into use out of this. So I don't know. I would keep doing it regardless, but like yeah, I think it's awesome.
Okay. But yeah, that's our time, folks. If you've enjoyed, follow us for the next episode where we talk about roguelike progression systems, and that's a wrap.